Alright, check that out. Hey, this is a beautiful lasagna. If you want to learn how to make one of these dishes, watch this video and you're going to get all of the information you need on how to make the best tasting, easiest to make lasagna you've ever had in your life. Hello, welcome back to Texas Cooking. Today we are going to work on a lasagna. Now this is going to be a really unique way of making a lasagna. A lot of times people make lasagnas and they'll pre-cook the noodles. Okay, well I'm going to show you how to, number one, we're going to make the noodles fresh, and number two, how to do this without having to cook the noodles beforehand. Okay, so this is a really neat way to make a lasagna, and once you try it, I think you're going to be stuck on it. Now today, to make pasta, and that's what we're going to start with, I've got some basic all-purpose flour here, salt, olive oil, and eggs, and that's all pasta is just these ingredients. Now your proportions. When you're making pasta, 1 cup of flour to 2 eggs. Okay, so 2 to 1 ratio. It's very simple. Today I'm going to make a double batch because I'm doing a lasagna, so it takes a lot of pasta, and I want to roll out large sheets. And that way, instead of using small strips, I'll just use sheets large enough to fit the entire pan and drop those down in there, and makes a really neat lasagna that way. It's all a solid piece. Now I need to get this started, so measure out 2 cups of flour. This doesn't have to be exact. You can be kind of rounded and rough with these measurements. See how I'm doing that? Shake a little off the top there. Okay, there we go. Now the reason it doesn't have to be exact is because you're going to be adding more flour later. Now, let me make sure. I'll move this up just a bit. What I'm going to do is make a well in the middle of my flour. Just like so. And in the middle of this well, I'm going to crack my eggs. There we go. Now we've got that out of the way. When we work on pasta like this, we're just going to simply beat it with a fork. Now to this I want to add 2 pinches of salt. Now what is 2 pinches of salt? Okay, a pinch of salt is, looky there, that's about a half a teaspoon. Okay, so I've added a teaspoon of salt. On your olive oil, you're going to want to add 1 to 2 tablespoons per batch, which would be a 1 cup batch. This is a double batch, so we can add up to 4 tablespoons of olive oil. Okay, now all this has to be is beaten together. Now when you're doing this, it's very simple. Break those yolks and just start beating the mixture in the center of the flour. Slowly, you will incorporate the flour into this. As that happens, you get a little bit thicker. Okay, working that in. Now, when you're making pasta, there's something you need to remember. Get everything mixed, and then once you form a ball, you don't have to work it anymore. In fact, it's not good to work it. It's best to take this and set it aside and let it rest. I would let it rest at least 20 minutes. If you let it rest that long, to 30 minutes, then you're going to be good. Why do you want to let it rest? In other words, resting means just sitting there. Well, you're going to let it rest because this stuff gets really unruly. Now, I didn't understand that. I kept hearing it from chefs when I was learning to cook. And I didn't understand why they would rest it. Nobody would say. Through use and experimentation, I have learned that if you try to start rolling out pasta immediately after you mix it, it's going to have a tendency to resist you. It'll shrink right back up. Okay, so don't even bother with that. Now, see how that's gotten really thick? All I have to do now is just ball it up a bit and set it aside. That's exactly what I'm going to do, and I'm going to move on to my next step, which is going to be making the sauce. Now, we have just finished mixing our pasta. When I finished in that bowl, all I did is put my hand in there, rub the pasta off of the fork, and ball it up. And use the rest of the flour in the bottom of the bowl to help me ball it up. And it was a bit floury on the outside. Now that flour is starting to soak in. Just put it in a bag and set it aside. Okay, and that's all we're going to do. Now, some people say put that in the refrigerator because it has egg in it, and that egg could go bad while it's sitting out for 20 minutes. Well, I tell you what, if that's the case, don't worry about it, because you're going to put it in a 350-degree oven and cook whatever it is off. If you're just really worried, put it in the fridge, okay? But you're not going to have any problems, trust me. Now, on your ingredients for your sauce, I have out garlic, oregano, rosemary, basil, and thyme, and some salt. Now these are sort of what I like to call the Italian four. When you get down to what a lot of sauces have in them that are marinaras, you're going to find any combination or all, sometimes all four of these herbs, and frequently garlic, okay? So that's what mine has. Now normally when I make a marinara that's going to go directly on top of a pasta like let's say spaghetti or maybe a ravioli, then I'll go ahead and use a heavy wine like a Merlot, a dark wine. In this case, I'm going to make a really super thin pasta, thin pasta sauce. I want this marinara to be watery almost, so I'm going to put in a lighter wine that will be a little bit sweeter, and this is a white Zinfandel, okay, and I'm going to water this down dramatically. Now to make this sauce, I have 16 ounces of tomato sauce and some tomato paste. I think that's about 8 ounces of tomato paste there, 6 or 8 ounces, and then we're going to to those add in everything that you see here, and I'm going to give you some idea on proportions. For instance, I can get away with using a lot of basil. It's a wonderful sweet herb, but if I use too much oregano, then it's going to have a tendency to overwhelm the dish really quick. The rosemary and thyme add a light sparkle to this, and it's a wonderful flavor. So the rosemary has one problem. It is a real twiggy, woody kind of herb, so we're going to have to rub that down in a mortise and pestle. If you can use fresh herbs, please do, but most of us at home don't have fresh herbs, so what are you going to do? You're going to break out those little bottles, and they've got this type of stuff in it. It's dried leaves. Okay, so here's how we go on this. We're going to start by putting in our tomato sauce in our pan and our tomato paste. And I'm going to cook this sauce for a short period of time, but not very long. Now there's two different ways I do these. Sometimes I will chop my garlic, put it in the bottom of the pan, and roast it with a little bit of olive oil. Sometimes I put the garlic in raw and just let it cook into the sauce that way. Both ways work fine, okay? But when you're going to put it in raw, remember to fine mince it. When you put it in the oil and cook it down, you can actually remove the garlic before making your sauce. In this case, the garlic won't be noticed because it's mixed with cheese, and being that it's mixed with cheese, you won't see those little white specks, okay? Because it's a lasagna, right? Now, we have all of our sauce in that bowl. Let's get to our herbs. Now, on these things, I don't shake them. I pour them out. Look at what I'm doing. I want about a teaspoon to a teaspoon and a half of oregano. Okay? There we go. Right there's about a teaspoon. Okay? Guaranteed. Boom. I've been doing that so long, measuring in my hand so long, that you get used to the exact proportions. And when people challenge you, you can pour it right into a measuring spoon and show them up. I want a tablespoon, 1, and about a teaspoon, 2. That's basil. Now, the thyme is ground thyme in this case. In this case, I want about 3/4 of a teaspoon of thyme. That ground thyme is real strong, okay? So be easy on it. Now our rosemary, this is going to have to be, as I said, rubbed down. So let's take a mortise and pestle, this device. I want to pour out about a tablespoon of these leaves. That's a little over a tablespoon. Okay. Here we are. Like so. Put those in your mortise and pestle. Now, mill that down. Don't be afraid to just get on it. Press down hard and spin the mortise around in the pestle. Or the pestle around against the mortise. There we go. Or it's going to be mortar and pestle. And see that ground product I produced? Really nice, light. Just a little bit more. Not so it's powdery, but broken down well, yes. There we go. Right in there. Now, how am I going to work that garlic? Let me show you some tricks about garlic. Once you break the garlic away from the center bowl, you take each of those cloves gently in your hand, firmly hold them, give them a squeeze and a twist, and it will break that paper away. Some sauce on my hand. Alright. There. 3 beautiful cloves. See how simple that was? Don't make getting that paper off real hard. Now sometimes you want to do that because you might want to keep the clove whole for some reason. Alright? If you use other methods, it'll break it. You don't get that effect. I have many videos on how to mince garlic. In fact, I do have a video on garlic, and it'll show you this exact technique. So if you want to learn how to do this right up, just watch that. It'll give you all the information you need. Now when you're first breaking these down, you're going to have to do a slow chop. Now when you're going to do this for a sauce and you're not going to pre-cook the garlic and then extract the oils in an olive oil, then what you want to do is to make this a fine mince. So don't be too coarse with it. You want it to look about like Parmesan cheese that's grated in those little containers that you buy at the grocery store. Garlic took a leap of faith. There we are. Fine minced garlic into our pan. Okay? Did y'all see that with the garlic? Isn't that cool? Right in there. Now, a tablespoon of salt. And we're up and cooking. Okay, what you want to do is to start whisking all of that together, and it's going to be thick and pasty to begin with. And you're going to start it out on a low flame, okay? Now, I do have a bottle already open. That white Zin. Now on your white Zinfandel, when you're cooking with wine, if it's not something that you're drinking, don't bother cooking with it. Okay, just take it and throw it away. If you're not willing to drink it, then don't cook with it. Now, those little jugs of cooking wine are absolutely disgusting. And If you don't drink wine, then at least walk over to the aisle where the wines are sold and get something that's real. Okay, so I'm just dropping it in there. Okay. Now, here we have it. I have a marinara that's going to warm up. I need that to cook for just a little while. It needs to set the flavors from the herbs and spice. And once that is done, then I can use it down in the lasagna. This is going to have to be thinned down some more, and I'm going to add some water to it because that's the moisture that's going to actually cook into the pasta, since we're not going to pre-cook the pasta. I have a couple of items. This is going to be part of our filling. This is a cheese lasagna, so what do I have here but ricotta cheese? This is traditional in making lasagna using ricotta cheese. Now, if you want to know how much here, this is about 30 ounces, okay? For the layman's, that would be 2 of the small tubs in the grocery store. Now, I have here a bowl of spinach. These are baby greens, okay, the smaller leaves. They work really well in this dish. And also some salt. Now, I don't want to use a lot of salt, but I need just a little bit to start bringing out some of the flavor in this. The spinach will help make this a lot richer, but you don't just pour the spinach in there, okay? You don't make a layer of it in a lasagna. What you do is you fine chop the spinach, and I'm going to show you a method to do that here in just a moment. Now, I've already removed the ricotta from the tubs and placed that in a bowl. Let me set that salt aside. Let's take the spinach and work with it, okay? Get a knife, cutting board here. Now, when you're going to do fine cutting on spinach, there's a real trick to this. You're going to have to gather up the leaves. And I'm going to move the angle of this view over to this other side so that you can see how the blade is going to actually contact this, and you'll get a real good idea of how to do a really fine cut. Alright? Now, to fine cut our spinach, just gather your leaves, and you don't have to be pretty about this, okay? But just stack them up in your hand. If you happen to see any leaves that are unsightly or bruised or anything, well, just discard them. Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. Toss them aside. If that one's a little bit wilted, gone. Okay? Isn't that simple? And we want to make a nice stack of these. Now, there's a couple of French words that are commonly used when it comes to fine slicing. That would be like julienne or a chiffonade. And in this case, this is going to be a chiffonade. A chiffonade is where you take your leaves and gather them together and cut them extremely thin. Now, this only works one way if you happen to have very sharp knives. If your knives are dull, you're not going to be able to do a decent chiffonade, and it will bruise the leaves horribly. The sharper the knife, the better for this, okay? So make you a nice stack, and I'm going to do this twice, and I want my stack to be about 2 inches thick. I'm going to press down on it when I'm making this. Okay? I'm going to take the rest of these leaves, just gather them and get them out of my way. Okay? Now I have a stack of leaves. Take my blade. Now, notice how I grab this. I put all my fingers together just like this. And I put them right on top of my leaves, just like so. Now, after I do that, I then take and bend my fingers down like that. Now, the reason I'm doing this is I'm forming a cutting guide for my knife. My knife is going to come along here, and it's going to rub along my finger, and then I can slowly creep my fingers back along my leaves and move my cuts back. Okay? So, that's what I'm doing with my hand, and that's the reason it's in that position. Take your knife. You see how you can rub the side of the knife against that knuckle? It's not going to hurt a thing. Just don't bring your knife up high. Okay? Keep it down low. Make a cut. Keep doing that. Just really fine cuts. Slowly moving back. Okay? A bowl. There we go. See how simple that is? Now, this isn't that hard. We're going to chop this whole stack of leaves this way. And then I want to cross cut it a little bit to make little bits.
It'll break down nicely. Now, you don't have to throw in all of the stems if you have a little stack of them at the end. Just discard that, okay? The rest of these larger leaves I'll set aside. I'm going to make my cross cuts. Okay, see there? Isn't that nice? Now I can take that and scoop it up, place it right in my cheese. Okay? And I'm going to do that again. I'm going to mix a whole bunch of that into that cheese. There's a lot of cheese there, so don't worry about that. Okay, I want to continue this, and then we will get right back in the mixing. Oh, you got it on. Oh, cool. We've got that cutting board moved out of our way. Now, I'm going to add in just a little bit of salt. I'm going to put in about 3/4 of a teaspoon there. Now, why so little? Well, I'm only trying to bring flavor to the surface in this, and it's not going to take a lot. Okay, so I just want to take that spinach, get it mixed into the cheese really well, and that's all you have to do. There's your filling, folks. Right there. See, isn't that pretty? And to make your lasagna, once you just start packing this in, you've handled both of those ingredients side by side. And frankly, the cheese helps to protect the spinach so it doesn't wilt down so bad. It holds structure well, and the flavor holds up well, and it doesn't get all cooked out and bad tasting. Okay, so this is how you get that real fresh, clean flavor up inside of your lasagna. So I hope you enjoy it. Okay, looks like I'm ready to take care of rolling out my pasta. It has been a while now since that pasta has started resting. I'm going to be rolling it out and cutting it to fit in this. Now, I'm not going to cut little strips, which I could do, and then fit them in there, and some people might find that easier. I find it easier just to cut a single large piece of pasta and drop it down in there. And then I can do it another time for another layer of pasta and just build it up that way. So, as far as the pan you use, it does not have to be rectangular. It can be round, it can be square, you can do it in 2 small ones, you can do it in little bitty pans, several of them. You could do it in a skillet if you want to. It doesn't really matter, you just need a pan to cook the stuff in, alright? Now I like to use something that's kind of short and wide, and it makes a nice lasagna that's just about the right thickness if it's about 2 to 2.5 inches thick. So, what we're going to do now is take our pasta, which we have allowed to rest, pull it right out of this package. If it cooperates, there we go. Now, see how it's already wanting to stick to our cutting board? Let's not worry about that too much. I took the spoon that I measured with earlier, just dropped it down in the flour, so I kept it with it. You might want to do that. Oh, you always have that ready. Cool. Now, need to roll but one section of this at a time. The rest of that I want to daub it in a little bit of flour and set it in the back so it doesn't go sticking into everything. Alright. Now the reason we rested this was because this stuff has a tendency when you're rolling it out to want to shrink right back up. So I go ahead and I rest it in advance, and that allows it to be just a little bit more agreeable. Okay, so when you're rolling it out, it doesn't fight you so much and want to shrink right back up. If you want, try rolling it out immediately after you make it, and you'll discover quickly exactly what I'm talking about. Alright. Now remember, when you cook pasta, the pasta swells up. It'll take on the liquid, it gets a little bit fatter. So, be careful in rolling this out. You don't want it to be real thick. Now here I've got that edge of that, and it looks like it's just a little under of a 1/4 inch thick. That's just not going to do it. Okay, we're going to have to make that a lot thinner. Now the edge, honestly, is thicker than the center of this, though. go. Now you kind of get to, I can start see the banding of my cutting board through the pasta when I'm getting it thin enough, and it's down to about less than a 1/16 of an inch thick. That's about a 32nd of an inch thick, and it's just really nice. Now if it sticks, you can take that knife, cut that sucker loose. Like that. There we go. Now this pasta rolled out really easy, and that is because I rested it. If you don't, you're going to fight with it. It's not going to be fun for you. There we go. Now, I can cut this to fit my pan. Nice. What am I going to do with the rest of that pasta? Well, I'll tell you what, you could make shapes with it, and then you can dry it on a cookie sheet and save it for later and use it just like any pasta that you buy from the store. Now if I cut this too long or too short or too wide or too anything, then I can just adjust it a little. Okay, I can either re-roll it a little, or I can just add a little of the other pasta I have made on the side here if it's too narrow. If it's too wide, you can just lip up on the edge of the dish some, okay? So we won't worry about that. Now I have this sheet made. We'll put him aside. When you do this, you might want to make sure you've got enough flour on there so that it doesn't have a tendency to stick to itself. There we go. There we are. I can take that other one, roll him out the same exact way. See how easy that is to work pasta and to make a good sheet of pasta to go into a pan? This doesn't take an extreme amount of work to get that homemade effect. Okay. I'm going to keep working these, and once I have them ready to go in my dish, I'll show you how to assemble your lasagna. Alright, here we are back on our sauce. We're almost done with this guy. Now, we've added a lot of wine to this, which is going to give it a good natural flavor. It's somewhat thin, alright? I want to thin it down just a little bit more. Now, here's the trick. When it comes to sauces that you want to have a wine flavor in them when they're eaten, okay? If I was going to put this on top of a spaghetti and I wanted it to have a strong white zest flavor to it, then I would go ahead and add a little bit more now, right before putting it on the pasta. However, in this case, I'm going to be putting it down inside of a lasagna, and it's going to be cooking some more. So I can't get that effect with that either way. All I can do is just thin this down a little bit more to provide me some liquid to cook into the pasta itself. Now that sauce has become thin and soupy. It's about the thickness of tomato juice right now. Okay? And that's just what you want, because it's going to thicken right up as you're cooking it. All of that extra moisture will cook into the pasta. Now, got the cheese ready. We have our sauce ready. I've put in about 1.5 cups of water at the end of the cooking here, and originally we put in about a little over half a bottle of some white Zinfandel there. So, now is our assembly time. Let's put this thing together. I do believe that we are about ready to assemble our lasagna. Now, before I get all of my ingredients lined out in that pan, I want to do one thing with that pan just to make life a little easier. I'm going to take some olive oil, just going to put a little dash down in there. Okay, not much at all. Now I'm going to take a paper towel, dab it in that olive oil, and just rub those sides with it, okay? Right up there. And the reason I do that is some cheese is going to contact that sucker. And when it does, I don't want it to bake on there and be held to clean off later, okay? So there, I've given it a nice coating. It's also going to add just a mild flavor that won't just do a whole lot, but it'll be there. Now, I want to take some of my pasta. Look at that. Got it pulled out, ready to go. Now, first thing I need to do this layering system, I'm going to put some sauce in the bottom of that pan. Now, let me get myself a ladle, a small one in my pan. And here I have my sauce that we prepared. It's nice and thin and soupy. I'll put it down in the bottom of this dish. Now, how much sauce to put in there? Well, if you're already used to making lasagnas, it's going to take about twice as much of this as what you would normally put down in there. Well, depending on how you layer it out. Because, again, there's extra moisture in this sauce for the sole purpose of cooking into the pasta. So, make it a decent layer. Now, we'll take that. Watch what we do here. I'm dropping right down in that pan. Stretch them out a little bit. If some of that sauce comes over the edge, don't worry about it. There we are. Now, I've got the first layer taken care of. I got to work on that next layer. I've got a broken spot on this edge over here. You remember we had all that leftover pasta? You can take some of that. You don't have to be pretty with it. And just layer it in right there. Okay? There. Tear off some pieces. You stretch them to fit. Work it right down in there. Okay? Now we have our cheese layer. Let's work on that yummy, yummy cheese layer. Now this cheese, this ricotta, is sort of halfway in between wet and dough-like. So my hands will get a little messy, but I can kind of press that flat and just layer it in there, one bit at a time. And I want on this one to be just a nice thick layer of cheese in the center of my cheese lasagna, with pasta on either side and sauce on either side of that. Now, the other way is you can just do little globs like this. See that? And you can do it with a spoon if you want to be neat about it. But guess what? Sometimes in the kitchen, you just got to get your hands down in it, okay? So, and that's just the way it is. There we are. A little thick in the center, and move some off to the side. There we go. And don't worry, that cheese is going to run a little bit as it cooks, okay? It'll kind of move around then in there. Okay, once we get all that in there, I'll do my top layer here in just one moment. Now, let's take that pasta and get that top layer up in there. We are right on top. Stretch it out. It's too much. Cut a little off. It's not going to hurt it. Keep there. Fit down in there. Now, I'm ready for the last two things I want to do to this, which is more sauce, and then I'm going to put some grated mozzarella over the top of that. Now, if you're using fresh mozzarella and it's in a ball form, you're going to have to take that. You're not going to be able to grate it because it is way too soft. You'll have to take it and cube it up into small cubes with your nice sharp chef's knife. So, have at it that way. Go. Plenty of sauce on there. Look at that. Isn't that a neat way to do a lasagna? There. Okay. I have maybe just a couple of ounces of sauce left, but I don't need those. Set that aside. My oven has been heating at 350 degrees. Watch this. This cheese, as that sauce cooks down and into the pasta, will rise right up on top. It'll be wonderful. How much cheese? I'm using an 8-ounce amount of cheese here. 8-ounce block of cheese is what I started with. Okay. We'll take the rest of that. Some people like to put some Parmesan on there also. If you want to do that, feel free. You can put all kinds of things up on there. Some Romano. Now, is that the Italian way of doing that? That's my way of doing that. That's what that is. That's Texas cooking. Yeah, we're a little bit offbeat, but you'll be surprised how good this comes out. Okay, we're going to bake it, and once it's out of the oven, let you take a look.